I'm Sandy Middleton, Executive Director for the Center for Violence Prevention, and we're celebrating our 35th year of service to victims. So I wanted to take an opportunity to bring together this beautiful crew of our rapid response advocates who respond to human trafficking cases all over the state. So just thought it would be a good time to get to know these ladies and what they do, and we'll ask a few questions about their work. So Christina, I want to start with you. So Christina McCool is our Tower Operations Manager. Christina, give us a short definition or a short summary of the two sides of the tower.
Sure. So the tower operates two parts. The first part is the long-term recovery program for adult survivors of human trafficking. It's up to 2 years where survivors can come and get therapy and learn life skills and job skills and kind of restart their life. And then the second part of the program is our response throughout the entire state, and that's what these ladies do. They respond to victims in real time wherever they are, and trying to connect them with services and assessments, and just respond with their to meet the needs that they have in the moment. So that's the two parts.
And these ladies have worked really hard to form partnerships with all the different disciplines. They work closely with law enforcement, they work closely with medical providers and other agencies within their communities. So they are truly a key to the whole response effort across the state, and we're grateful for them. So Kashayla, thank you for being here with us. You are over in the Meridian area. And so Kashayla's background is in mental health services. So she has a complete different approach and different lens that she sees these cases, these clients from. So Kashayla, from your mental health background, you know, a lot of times people say, oh, well, they just, you know, they're just crazy, or they need mental help, or they need to, and so they fail to see that this person is actually a victim, and what they're looking at is trauma. And so from your discipline, how do you see that?
I think it's, the first thing is to see what's underneath the surface, first of all. To look beyond the trauma. Sometimes when you have a client that comes in or a victim that comes in, and they've dealt with a lot in life, you know, from sexual abuse, trauma, all sorts of, you know, things. And so what may look like mental health, and sometimes it is because you do have co-occurring, you know, disorders and stuff like that, you have to kind of like dig a little bit deeper underneath the surface to see what story are they actually trying to tell you, because sometimes the disorder or maybe the mental health issue that is present is just a symptom that's coming out from the trauma and from the things that they've been through and the experiences. So it's important to look past that, to look beneath the surface and really see what the client is telling you, because sometimes a victim or a client is telling you a lot of things without the necessary words sometimes. So sometimes you have to pay attention to the body language. You have to pay attention to, like I said, what they're really telling you in this story. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time. You know, for me personally, in my area, I do get a lot of mental health cases. And like I said, sometimes you do have that co-occurring disorder going on in conjunction with the trauma. But spending time and really getting to know like the support system, the past, the trauma, the experiences, to really see like, okay, are we really dealing with a true mental health case, or are we dealing with trafficking? And like I said, sometimes it is both. And so it's very important to take the time, to spend the time with the client, to spend the time with the victim, to really understand their story of what they're telling you, with not necessarily them coming out. So it's just about spending that time with them and building that rapport with them as well, and giving them the necessary services and the resources that they may need. Like someone else said, they may not need those particular services or resources now, but they may need them later, and knowing that you are in their corner. I think that that's very important.
Right, I agree. Thank you, Kashayla.
Thank you.
So this is Keisha Tyson. Keisha responds in Central Mississippi and has been with us a long time, right, Keisha?
6 years.
6 years. So she actually comes to us from law enforcement,
Yes,
and actually came to us with a lot of wonderful connections within the law enforcement community. She was very respected in that community, and it's been a blessing to us to have her in this role. So, Keisha, you've been here a little while, so do you have any memories? Do you have any special cases that come to mind that have kind of hung on through the years?
Yeah, I think a couple of mine are obviously going to deal with the juveniles. I deal with juveniles a lot in this area, and some of my favorite, I've had two that have actually gone, kind of started over, went through the process with us with the outreach and the therapy services and things like that, and graduated college, gone to tech school, and they're doing really well. And it was really, I guess, encouraging and uplifting to kind of see that process and see them start over. And then one of my favorite was I got to help deliver a baby. So that was really cool, and that's always going to be a really special memory for me.
Yeah, I think Christina was there with you on that one too,
Yeah,
right?
I've delivered two.
Oh, that's right, the two of y'all have delivered two babies. That's right, I had forgotten that second one. So, well, the bond that you're talking about is what it's all about is trust. And
Right.
that bond of trust that these ladies have with the clients that they work with, that's the magic, because they know that from the time they meet these ladies, that the relationship continues regardless of where their placement is, or even if they're back out there, they know that they can always reach their rapid response advocate. So that really is the magic in this part of the program. So when you talked about that client, how long did that take? Because people have the idea that when we rescue a victim, that it's like opening the door of a cage and the little bird flies out and lives
Right.
happily ever after. But we all know that's far from
Right.
the truth. So talk to me about how long that took.
Gosh, for both of them, it was a couple of years. They had to work through a lot of trauma and a lot of therapy and a lot of things that they had to work through to be able to get to a point where they were comfortable and safe and trusted, going to school or, trying something that, they never thought that they could achieve ever. So each one of those, probably at least 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, like I said, that oftentimes is one of the biggest misunderstandings
Right.
about the work. That, we talk about the victims that are recovered, and, the public doesn't understand that it's like peeling an onion.
Right.
It's a long process for recovery, and there are a lot of needs with each of the clients that we work with. And I'll talk with Christina a little bit more about that as we move on. But thank you, Keisha. Thank you for your time with us, and thank you for your commitment to the clients that you serve.
Thank you.
Everybody's special. So, Christina, one of the things that we were so excited about in the great House Bill 1559 that Speaker Philip Gunn authored, and that we passed, and it's just been celebrated all over the country as model legislation. So one of the things that law did was it stood up the Mississippi Human Trafficking Operational Task Force Board. So you are a member, you're on the board of that group. So talk to me about what the task force board does, why it's important, and why we really want to continue to push those efforts.
When we first started this effort, really in 2017, formally, we were bringing in national trainers to train our law enforcement. And the truth is, the trends and the language and the things that you see nationwide is not the same as what's going on in Mississippi. And so what we learned over the first few years of working with law enforcement is that we already had in-state experts. And so we started kind of developing what this looks like. And then we got to add a trauma-informed, victim-centered element that supported investigations. And so that's kind of how it was born. And so I'm really excited now that we get to work with our in-state experts that have worked hundreds, if not thousands of cases in thousands of hours and successful prosecutions. And so they set a standard for investigations throughout our state. And,
Yes.
and the board is just a wealth of experience and practical knowledge, what it's looking like in not just urban communities, but rural communities, working with children and adults, the challenges that they experience when you have deceased victims, or when you have victims that are, you know, kind of fleeing or have other issues. But it's been a very successful collaboration, and now we have about 500 certified human trafficking investigators in our state.
Right, and that law gave the capacity or gave the ability to the task force board to certify law enforcement investigators. So that's a very special honor that this group was given, and it was earned because the two investigators that are on the team or on the board, Nick Brown and Philip Hendricks, have years of experience and are really the top of the class when it comes to investigations for human trafficking. And you know, they both have full-time jobs in investigations, but they make themselves available to this network that's been created through this training, through this certification, all over the state. And Nick and Philip are happy to answer questions and to help people along in investigations and working cases. And then we also have Amanda Fritz, who is ADA and an assistant district attorney here in Rankin County, and she brought the first successful human trafficking prosecution in the state, I guess, a couple of years ago. So, you know, she has expertise that she's willing to share and able to share with law enforcement and with prosecutors. So, and then Christina's on the board and brings that victim services voice. So it's a wonderful group, great board. They're working really hard, and this network across our state is really changing the dynamic of investigations for trafficking. And we're so grateful for the board. And Christina, thank you for your involvement and your voice in the effort as well.
For sure, I love it.
Janice is here with us to talk a little bit about her role as a rapid response advocate up in the north part of the state. So Janice, you've been with us for
a little over 2 years.
A little over 2 years. Janice is also SANE, a sexual assault nurse examiner, which she brings a whole different layer of expertise to her role as an advocate. Got a lot of understanding about the medical field and how that contributes to our victims and the recovery and everything. So, you know, knowing that you work with a lot of different disciplines in your area, I mean, you work with law enforcement, you work with the medical community, you work with the social services and everything, what comes across to you as some of the biggest things that need to be fixed in our system?
You know, I've worked in several different areas, and I think it would determine the changes would be specific to certain areas, if that makes sense. Overall, I think education and awareness of what trafficking in this rural areas really looks like. It's not necessarily the snatch and grab that you see on the movies that's sensationalized. That's not the dynamic. It does happen, but more here in these rural areas, North Mississippi, any area that I've worked, it's been more familial type things. I think defining, you know, what each role is and all work together instead of working individually as agencies. Like, you know, you've got the healthcare part, you've got CPS, you've got law enforcement, you've got all these different agencies that have their hand in it, but nobody's working together. Some cases do, some cases don't, but we need more cohesive network where we can communicate and work together to find the best outcomes for these victims. And identifying the victims at a younger age, I think, is crucial. I think we miss a lot of those things. My previous experience as a nurse, I can tell you I worked in the emergency room. There were so many signs and indicators that I missed in that role. So I think each discipline, each area, each agency needs education specific to what their response would be and how to identify victims. And as far as the children go, you know, we deal with a lot of minors, especially in our areas. I have a lot of minors I have contacts with. law enforcement, CPS, we get CPS tips, the tip line. I get calls from law enforcement. I think community wants to turn a blind eye a lot of times to things that are going on, and they assume somebody else is going to speak up, and nobody speaks up. And so the kids are lost in the system, and they're lost in these places where they become more vulnerable, and so they're just looking for attention, and they're wanting the love, and unfortunately the traffickers are the ones that are giving it to them, not us. And so I think that's where we fail a lot as a society as a whole, is, you know, especially after COVID, everybody has boundaries. And I think sometimes you just have to cross a boundary, and nobody wants to cross a boundary. And I think the children a lot of times get lost in the shuffle. I think law enforcement wants to do their part, medical wants to do their part. See, and then each agency is dependent on the other one to follow up with the end result. And that's where we can come in and help bridge that gap and bring together law enforcement, CPS, medical. We can bridge that gap and gain trust with the children, gain trust with these kids. Let them know that somebody loves them and cares, and that they are capable of anything they want to do. They just have to have that encouragement.
That's great. Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your work.
You're welcome.
Appreciate
It's
it.
an honor.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Taylor, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Taylor serves over in the Golden Triangle area, and Taylor's got a little bit of a different relationship. She's actually married to an investigator, and so she has a great connection with law enforcement, but she also understands law enforcement. So we're going to talk just a minute about how we've developed relationships with law enforcement across the state, what that looks like, how that helps victims. So Taylor, just jump in and talk about, I know you were on the ground when we very first started a task force in that area. You spent a lot of time selling what CVP does and, you know, all the services that we offer. So talk to me about what that looked like for you.
So, building a task force in the Golden Triangle area was very much reaching out to law enforcement, kind of gauging an interest with law enforcement in human trafficking and investigating human trafficking, which, you know, I think it was pretty good. And so with that also came introducing them into training, getting them certified as human trafficking investigators, which, you know, in our position is really beneficial, because then it helps them know what to look for in human trafficking cases and how to investigate them and seek them out, especially. And so, you know, with the task force, you know, that kind of brings law enforcement from different agencies within the area together, so then we can kind of work collaboratively to get these victims, whether that's through operations or just with calls that they have within their community, going out and confronting individuals that may be victims and being able to, you know, dive a little bit deeper and see, you know, if that's a possibility, and then getting us involved. And that's really what's helpful on our end, is law enforcement being educated, working hard on identifying it, and getting these victims the help that they need.
Okay, so, you know, one of the questions that we get a lot of times is, you know, well, what's the difference between trafficking and prostitution? And, you know, I know that's one of the big things that we have to work through a lot of times with law enforcement, because through the years they've done prostitution stings.
Absolutely.
And, you know, they've gone out and rounded up all the prostitutes, and then, you know, so now we come in and we're like, well, you know, this is trafficking. So
Right.
How does that look in the area that you work?
So law enforcement, you know, needs to learn to identify force, fraud, or coercion, which needs to be present for it to be human trafficking, and that can look like, you know, an individual that they believe is a prostitute, but she has a pimp that controls her money, controls where she stays, controls, you know, how often she gets to eat, when that even happens. And so being able to dive a little bit deeper into their stories and not just seeing them at face value is the most important thing.
that's a great answer, and truly diving into the case, it takes time.
It
And
does.
It's not just as easy as going out and, arresting somebody and putting them in the back seat and then they're back
Right.
on the street in 6 hours or something. And of course, the force, fraud, and coercion absolutely has to be proven for an adult, but it does not have to be proven if it's a minor. So,
Right.
Anyway, thank you, Taylor, for what you do in your area, and we're excited to keep moving.
Thank you.
Aseret, thank you for being with us today, and thank you for your work. I know you're down in the Pine Belt, just making all the difference down there. So we'll talk a little bit about your referrals. And when talking to other rapid response advocates, we know that things are really different depending on the part of the state that they're working in. And so down in the Pine Belt, what do your referrals look like? I mean, where do you get most of them? What does it look like? Just talk to me about that.
So for us down in the Pine Belt is really during our operations that we do with law enforcement. Luckily, we have a great team in the task force
Yes,
that we have
good.
out there that are very compassionate about what they do. They really care,
Yes.
about trying to help these victims and identifying them and getting them the help that they need. We have seen past victims, come through the line, and then we get them back and we get them the help. So even though it might not happen exactly at that moment, they do come around. And I think it's because law enforcement puts themselves out there and shows them, that they do care and they can trust them. And so then that kind of opens the door for us to really come in and be able to provide the services that they need, give them the intervention, during those moments of crisis, whether it might be, getting them into a shelter, getting them financial help, whatever it is, we're right there and they're constantly, calling us back. But it's usually through our operations that we get most of our people.
And one of the things that law enforcement, that we love about working with law enforcement is, they became cops because they wanted to help people. And, having us there, having our people there, and a lot of times we have a nurse there, nurse practitioner there as well, that can provide all kinds of testing and treatment, and it's really a wonderful tool for law enforcement. And it changes the whole perception, because maybe for the first time these victims are offered help instead of just getting thrown in a jail cell or getting sent to juvenile or something like that. They're given an opportunity to discuss what they need, and that's for a lot of our clients that we work with, that's never happened before. And so it's really a game changer for them, just the difference in law enforcement's attitude and the way they respond to them. And it really means a lot to them to be able to say, hey, somebody's here that can help you. And so, do you have a story in your mind where that happened, where you said, hey, maybe cops brought somebody in and they didn't think they would ask for help, but they did?
It happens a lot too, where they come in and they're scared because they feel like law enforcement actually lied to them to bring them there. And they're like, but am I going to go to jail? Am I going to go to jail? No, they really told you the truth. They brought you here so you can speak to us, so we can give you the necessary help that you may need at the moment, whether it's right now or if you're not ready, you can give us a call. But they see it as a game changer for them, because they're not used to that. They're used to,
Right.
Being called a prostitute and treated like one, how it's happened, in prior years, or still happening in other states, but I'm so thankful that Mississippi has been making a big difference for victims.
Yeah, and like I said, it really does mean a lot to cops too, to be able to say, hey, we can help you, because that's why they got in the profession as law enforcement, to help people. And I think the only frustration that they feel is when they think a victim doesn't want help. And
Yes.
so a lot of times they may turn help down that night and then call back later. And of course, because everything we do is confidential, we don't get to call that law enforcement investigator up and say, hey, guess what? She called for more help. But that happens.
And it's interesting too, because sometimes, they might lose our number or whatnot, but they remember that officer's name and they know how to locate them easier. So sometimes they go back to them to get
Right.
in touch with us.
Right. You love it when, they love it when that
Oh, yeah,
happens. Because then they get to know for sure that
And then
they reached
get
back out
that
for help.
satisfaction of, I'm actually making a difference, so,
Right, right. That's wonderful. Thank you, Eseret.
thank you.